Hi, it's Tracy from The Passionate Spinner, and I've decided to come with you. No, I'm coming to you today with another book update. I filmed a video for books 1 through 18 that I read earlier in the year, and today I'm going to talk about books 19 through 33 because I'm at 33 books right now and I'm really happy about that. So I brought all of my books. They're next to me. I hope they will not fall over. And I brought my reading journal so I can show you. I have my master list. When I set it up, I thought, oh God, this is so much space. I'm never going to fill it because I kind of thought I'm going to write a book in every line. Why, I'm not sure, but I didn't. So I filled my pages that I had set aside, and then I had to make more pages on top of this quote here, so I can continue writing down my progress. But I'm gonna talk to you about the books, and I brought this so I know which order they're in. So book 19 that I read this year is called Beach Read, and it is a book by Emily Henry. It looks like this. It's I would say it's a romance book, but I watched a lot of YouTube videos about books, booktube videos, and it seems like a lot of people think that this is women's fiction because the romance takes a long time. And I don't quite understand the difference, to be honest, but hey, I read this book. It was really nice. I gave it 4 stars. Did I? Yeah, I did. I gave this book 4 stars. It is what it says. It is about 2 writers, a holiday, and their journey together. So she writes romance books, and he writes fiction. Just fiction. It did have a word before it, but I don't understand the difference anyways. So, and they've known each other since college. They studied together, and she always saw them as rivals, sort of, and so they basically end up in houses next to each other on a lake and realize that they're both in a writer's block and they don't know what to do and they cannot write their stories, so they decide to switch genres and write a book in the other person's genre and make a bet who will get it published. And the story goes from there. That's Beach Read. What I find a bit weird is, or it's not weird, it's just not easy to read. Her name is January, and that's just, I feel like every time her name comes up, it's like a stone I stumble over. But that's probably just me. But yeah, I enjoyed this one. It was really nice, but not a 5-star. I gave it 4 stars. So can go back in here. Then book number 20 was an audiobook, and it was this audiobook. It's The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, the second book in the trilogy. I give this one 4 stars, and it's a reread. I've read this book like almost 20 years ago for the first time, and oh no, is that even enough? Yeah, probably. I read it shortly before the films came out, so 20 years ago, and I've listened to the audiobooks a lot since then, so nothing new to tell you about this. Book number 21 was Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. And this book is amazing. If you have not read this book, you really should. It's about Trevor Noah and his life growing up in South Africa. And he's born in the same year that I am born. That's 1984, if you're interested. And how apartheid formed his childhood and youth, because he is of mixed race. His mother is black, his father is white, and that in itself was a crime. People were not allowed to have offspring when they are in mixed race relationships, which were also forbidden. So he was born a crime. And this book is amazing. It's eye-opening. It's so funny and so devastating, and it's just everything. You really should read this book. Then book number 22 was completely different. I read Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo, which is the first book in the Grishaverse trilogy. I have read the Six of Crows duology a few years ago, and I didn't even know that there were other books. So I found out and I bought them, and I have not read them. But the show on Netflix was released, and I really wanted to read the books before I watched that show. So I decided to read the first one before watching the show, and I've read the book. I have not watched the show yet. So this is about Alina, who grew up in an orphanage with her best friend Mal, and they end up in the military. He's a tracker, and she ends up being a cartographer. And in this world, there is something that's called the Fold, which is just pure darkness and full of evil. And they have to cross that to get to the other side for trade or for whatever reason. And in that fold, things go down, and Alina saves basically everybody's life. And she's not quite sure why and what happened. And there's a guy who's called the Darkling, because he can summon darkness. And he's very fascinated by her. And then they find out that she can summon light, which is something that hasn't happened in forever. So the story goes from there, how she's trained and what's going to happen. So this is the first book in the trilogy, and I have not read the other two yet. So I give this book 3.5 stars. It was a good start, but it wasn't mind-blowing. But I'm going to read the other 2 books in the series eventually. Then we have book number 23, which is by Helen Huang. I'm not sure how to say that, sorry. And it's The Kiss Quotient. And people love this book. And I can see why. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I liked it a lot, but there was a lot of not talking to each other and miscommunication. And that's one of the things that I hate the most in books. You know, when things could be solved so easily if you would just talk to each other, and then it's like a 100-page dance around because no one wants to talk, and there's lots of misunderstandings, and I just don't like it. And this happens here in this book. So this book is about Stella, and she is autistic. And because of that, she thinks that she's just not good at relationships and she needs someone to teach her. And she hires Michael, who's a male escort, to teach her how to be good in bed, because she thinks that that is her whole problem with relationships. And I'm not sure what else to tell you. A lot of things happen in this book. A lot of very sexy things happen in this book. So if you do not like that, this probably will not be a book for you, because there's a lot of stuff happening, which I don't mind. Yeah, I like this book. It was super sweet. It's also the first one in a trilogy so far. I do have the second book. I've not yet bought the third one, but yeah, it's a nice one. I like it. Oh, and it was up there. Then I had another audiobook. The next one is the next Lord of the Rings book, which is book number 3, The Return of the King. And it's also a 4-star read for me, which is fun because the first book has always been a 5-star read. It's one of my absolute favorite books ever. And the whole series in itself is my favorite, even though the individual books aren't all 5 stars, if you know what I mean. You know, I love the series. I really like the books, but the whole thing is so much better than its individual parts. So yeah, I listened to the third book in the trilogy, and I listened to the whole trilogy this year, and it really made me happy. You know, it's like coming home, sort of, which sounds very cheesy, but it's true. So book 25 was a nonfiction book, and it's this book here. It's called Untangle Your Anxiety. It is by Joshua Fletcher and Dean Stott. It says, a guide to overcoming an anxiety disorder by 2 people who have been through it. And this book helped me a lot in understanding why I function the way I function. Because I do have anxiety, and sometimes it's really bad. And I didn't know that, you know. I know where it comes from. I know why I have it, and you know where it's all started. But the German word for it is Angstzustand, which means like constant state of being afraid, which yes, is what anxiety is, but it is so much more. And I have always found the German description of this disorder to be not correct for me. But the English one, with all the information that comes with it and with all the variations, made really a lot of sense to me, and I really connected. And I did mark a lot of things in this book, as you can see. Just, you know, I really went through this, and there's a lot of physical symptoms that I had no idea came from anxiety that I have occasionally or all the time. And it made me understand who I am and why I am the way I am. So, and how to change that, hopefully, to get better. And, you know, because of all of that and all the information, I gave this book 5 stars, because I really think it was one of the best books for me to understand myself and help myself become better. Now that we've talked about the heavy stuff, let's go back to fluffy stuff. The next book I read was Red, White, and Royal Blue. And this is a very sweet rom-com. I give this 4 stars. And it is about the first son of the United States. So this book is a very wishful thinking book, because we have a female president in America. Her kids are mixed race because her ex-husband, she's divorced, and her ex-husband is Mexican American, who's also a senator. And so her kids live in the White House, of course, and her son is quite the player at first, but then he kind of falls in love with the Prince of England, who's called Henry. I mean, there are a million names on the planet, you know, and she had to call him Henry when there's an actual Prince Harry. I mean, that was a bit too much for me, but yes. It's about their love story and how they make it work. And I really enjoyed this. But I think there was a lot of really hard things that happened with no real consequences. For instance, I don't know if that is spoiling anything, but emails get exposed and the whole world reads them and nothing happens. No, nothing really happens because of it, except for them being happy, which is fine. They should be happy. But you know, it's a very nice book. There's no conflict in it whatsoever, which I personally think is a bit unrealistic. But I'm not here to read realistic stories. You know, real life is realistic enough. So, next book was an audiobook, and it is a German-only audiobook, even though the author's name sounds very English. So, I listened to, and it's also only an audiobook. There's no book version to this, which is really weird. But I listened to the second book in the Greenhaven series, and it's called Für das kleine bisschen Ruhm. It looks like this. It's on Audible. I give it 3 stars. It was okay, but it was also really quick. I mean, I listened to this in an afternoon and did not blow me away, and I do not plan on getting more of these books, because why? You know, didn't grab me at all. And then we have a lot of 5-star reads now. The next book I read was The Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren, and this I really loved. It is about a woman whose name, what's her name? Olive. She's Olive, and Olive's sister, her twin sister, gets married. And at the wedding reception, there's a seafood buffet, and Olive is allergic to seafood, so she has an extra special made for her chicken dinner, and the best man refuses to eat from a buffet because of hygiene, so he gets the chicken as well, which is good for both of them because the seafood has some kind of poison in it, and everybody starts vomiting except for them. And her sister is someone who wins basically everything. So the wedding was for free, the honeymoon was for free because she won it, and they're twins. So, you know, her twin sister is like, Olive, you're gonna go on my honeymoon, you're gonna take my best man because you look like me, you can use my passport, and for my husband I only gave a last name, so you can take his brother. And they hate each other. So they have to go on this honeymoon together, or it will just, you know, go to waste basically. And funny things happen from there. This is a really nice read. I enjoyed this book a lot. It was super funny, and I liked Olive, and I really liked the guy, Ethan was his name. They were great. So this was a really fun book. And like I said, 5 stars. And then we have a trilogy that I read back to back, interspersed with audiobooks. Now, the first book in the trilogy is called The Tourist Attraction. It is by Sarah Morgenthaler, and it's a really sweet rom-com. I have not laughed out loud as much when I read a book as I did with these 3 books. It's very sweet. It's, I read a lot of, you know, whenever I finish my book, I read what other people thought of it on Goodreads, and a lot of people were like, oh, this is so insta-lovey, and I mean, yeah, it was insta-lovey, but she's on vacation for 2 weeks. I mean, how long do you have to fall in love with someone when you're on vacation for 2 weeks? It's not gonna happen, you know? There is no slow burn stuff happening because there is no time. And if you can tell me that you've never been anywhere and saw someone and thought, ooh, I could have a connection with that person. Really? So this is what happens in this book. Zoe goes to Moose Springs, Alaska, and she is invited by her friend Lana, who's super rich. And Zoe is a waitress, and she wanted to go to Alaska forever, and she saved every penny she could for 10 years to go there. And her first night, she goes to a place called the Tourist Trap, and that is Graham's place, and Graham is a grumpy man. He hates the tourists, but they make him, you know, stay afloat in his business, and he's very grumpy. But he immediately likes her, and she ends up having a lot of things canceled because of weather and because of this and because of that, and somehow Graham always ends up being there and taking her out on things anyways. So it's just sweet and funny, and I really loved it. I gave it 5 stars. I read it in 2 days. Super nice book. Then, before I read the second book in the series, no, that's not true. I've then read the second book in the series, also in 2 days. It's called Mistletoe and Mr. Right. And this time it is about Lana, the super rich woman who decided to buy a lot of property in Moose Springs. And Moose Springs people hate tourists, and she's one of them. And she basically just bought up all the businesses and has the power to evict everyone. So everybody hates her except for Rick, who is the owner of the local pool hall. And in the first book, they were both in the first book as well, and was like, these two seem interested, and they are interested, turns out. And I really enjoyed this book as well. It's, like I said, it's about Rick and Lana and their love story. Not so super quick as the other one, because they have more time, because she's not on vacation, because she just bought a bunch of things up there and she's staying there for a while. So yeah, it's their story. It's super sweet as well. And then I listened to 2 audiobooks in between, and they are a reread basically of my favorite series, the Charlie Rhodes Cozy Mysteries. And the first one in the series is called The Bigfoot Blunder. And the second one is the Chupacabra Catastrophe. So these books are about Charlie Rhodes, who joins the Legacy Foundation, which is a organization that hunts the paranormal in hopes of finding proof for whatever. So in the first one, they try to find Bigfoot, and her group flies out to Michigan to this place called, not Walkerville, that's what it was called. I don't remember. Hooper's Mill's second book. It doesn't matter. They fly to Michigan, try to find Bigfoot because apparently he killed a woman. And their group is really fun. You know, it's a fun group of people. There's Chris, who's the boss, and he is super scientific and just in his head and very cute, but he just doesn't care because he's so into his work. And then there's Hannah, who's a scientist and a doctor. And she basically is an angel. She looks like an angel. She is an angel. As a person, she's so sweet, but also she has no idea what she looks like because she just doesn't care all that much, really. Because all she cares about is science. Then there's Laura, who is basically the femme fatale of the group, who thinks that everybody thinks she's the bomb. And she's a really nasty bitch. I mean, I would not want to work with that woman. And then there's Millie, who is Chris's aunt, and she's probably in her 50s. And she's like a rock and roll grandma. She's super fun. She always says everything that's on her mind. If it's appropriate or not, she just goes for it. She's drunk a lot. She's a lot of fun. And then there's Bernard, and he is the technic guy, basically. Everything that needs to be built or fixed, he's there to do it. And he's also in his 50s. And then there's Jack, who is the security person, you know, who makes sure that everybody is safe while they're on their trips. And Charlie, who just joined the group fresh out of college. So that's what's, you know, the setup. And then the first one, like I said, they fly to Michigan, try to find the Bigfoot. In the second book, they fly to Texas, to a ghost town called Hooper's Mill, because apparently the Chupacabra killed someone and they're trying to find proof of that. And it's just such a fun series. You know, it's a paranormal, cozy mysteries. It's just fun and fluff. I love this series very much. It is by Amanda M. Lee, and she has written a lot of other series. And Charlie kind of goes into all of those other series at some point and visits those characters in their places. So in the first book, when they go to Michigan, to the town I keep forgetting the name of, that actually is a long-standing series with like 15 books in it, and they visit those characters, and then Charlie goes on to other places. So I just really like it. I really like it. I read like 6 or 7 books in the series, but there are 3 out that I have not read yet, and they're very much on top of my list. So I get the books through Kindle Unlimited, and then I add on the audiobook for Audible, which cost me then like €3, which is super inexpensive. And that's how I do it with these books, because I first read them and then I listen to them. And I think I listened to them for the 4th or 5th time already, because I really love this series so much. Now, that said, let's talk about the last book I finished, and that is called Enjoy the View. And it's the 3rd book in the Moose Springs, Alaska trilogy. So far, there's going to be a 4th book that will come out next year. And in this book, we have Easton, who is Graham's best friend, and he's also in the other 2 books, and he's a mountaineer. And he is hired to take a film crew up a mountain, and they're filming a documentary. And the actress, who's called River Lane, is also an avid climber, and they just think that each other are wonderful, you know. Everyone thinks the other one's the bomb, and things happen. So that's the third book in the series. I also gave it 5 stars because I just really like these books a lot. They're super easy to read and sweet and funny and just nice, you know, a nice book. And that's it. That's books 19 through 33. I have not read this much in years, and it makes me super happy. I started another book yesterday, and I hope to maybe finish it today even. And just exactly what I need right now. Sit down, read a book, and just enjoy my life. And that's what I'm doing. So I hope you find something that gives you this kind of chill, inner, mellow feeling. And when you find that, just stick to it and do that over and over. And that is it for today. Next time it's going to be about some knitting again. Maybe, hopefully, we'll see. And I hope you have a wonderful time. Bye.